Yesterday was pretty boring. I apologize for that. Every once in a while, we got to buckle down and learn something, I guess. It's not always fun. Learning's hard work. I've had to have that conversation multiple times with my soon-to-be teenage daughter here this last week. We looked at those factors yesterday, things like depth, salinity, flow, temperature. Those affect what can and cannot live in aquatic biomes. We talk about the headwaters where everything begins up at higher elevation. Eventually it carves a path or a channel as it works its way through to sea level. And so the stream bed widens as it ages, more erosion takes place. And really the only main thing I want you to know about this is that we talk about the floodplain. The floodplain of a river is important. When the river floods, it brings fresh nutrients to that surrounding soil. And so that soil near the river is nutrient rich. It's great for farming when it's not underwater. Here we have a lake and a couple of terms that will come up later as well. We talk about the littoral zone, which is the surface, the top of the water. And the bottom is called the benthic. Benthic is referring to the ground. Anytime you see the word benthic, think of bottom. Now, wetlands are the most important of the freshwater biomes. A wetland is an area that for majority of the year has standing water. You can see there's wetlands dotted all over the United States, mostly along the coastal areas, especially the Gulf. All of southern Florida is just a giant swamp, which is a type of wetland. The Everglades, you've heard of that, right? A swamp has trees and woody plants that can still be sustained or grow in it. There's certain kinds of trees that are adapted to be in that much water. They don't need drainage. A marsh is going to be a wetland that does not have the wooded trees. It's going to have more the grasses and the lily pads. They're very similar. It's just the type of vegetation that grows there. And then if you have more of kind of in the middle of the land, not really near a coast, you have like a swampy area, that's called a bog. And it's going to be more acidic because there's so much sediment that washes into it. And the soil is slightly acidic. So that sediment washes in and it's really just a swampy pond. I used to joke around to my AP kids and tell them that the answer to every environmental science question is wetlands. You can tie wetlands into basically any topic in this course. You want to talk about burning coal? Well, yeah, wetlands are a natural carbon sink. They take some of that coal that goes into the air and store it for us. You want to talk about population growth? Well, we need fresh water, and wetlands are natural filters of our drinking water. Here you can see the different things that wetlands do for us. They absorb water, they're reservoirs. They help fill up our groundwater then. When the groundwater gets low, water from the wetlands can seep in. They're a wonderful habitat for so many species, both plant and animal. So they have great biodiversity. They naturally filter polluted water through their roots and through their soils to make clean groundwater. Now this next one is especially important, high productivity. So we're going to learn about something called gross primary productivity. A primary producer is a plant. They are organisms that take solar energy, energy from the sun, and turn it into energy that we can eat so that we have energy. We are consumers. There's producers and consumers. And if we eat plants directly, we are a primary consumer. If we eat a cow that ate the grass, then we are a secondary consumer. The cow is the primary consumer. It turns out that if you look at all of the terrestrial biomes and you look at swamps and marshes, wetlands, they are the highest primary producer by a ton. Look at that, they even beat tropical rainforest. Okay, so they have incredible levels of converting solar energy through photosynthesis. Already said they're a carbon sink. Vegetation stores carbon for long periods of time. That's good, it's not in the air. And they're pretty. Everglades in Florida is a national park. You can go there and do all kinds of fun experiences. So they are aesthetically pleasing to humans as well. Remember, these are ecosystem services. We talked about the different services supporting cultural and so on. Let's move on to the marine. Marine means salty. Maybe brackish. Brackish means that it's a mix of saltwater and freshwater. They are the transition zone between freshwater and saline water. Estuaries are areas where rivers directly empty into the ocean. That's where a delta forms. Estuaries have high productivity because they have the sediments that the rivers were carrying. And so there's lots of nutrients that get deposited in those estuaries. So stuff grows there very easily. And one of the most common plants that we find in coastal estuaries are mangroves. Mangroves grow in the tropics. They have adapted to grow in this strange area that has salt and fresh water. They have long roots, so they help hold the shore intact. And that also provides places for organisms to live. Sometimes humans, remember, can impact biomes in negative ways. We've chopped down a lot of temperate forest. We're now chopping down rainforest. We can actually influence a brackish estuary as well. When we build too close to the coast and we still need drinking water, well, what can happen is we can pull too much drinking water out of the ground, and it allows the ocean water to seep in and contaminate more of the terrestrial groundwater. So we can accidentally turn our well salty. That's called saltwater intrusion, when the salt water comes further inland because of humans drawing too much groundwater. Coral reefs occur off the coast. They are the most diverse marine biomes. Mutualism, and that's where two organisms interact in an ecosystem. They both benefit from their relationship in some way. They pull carbon out, and then they turn it into shell, or that carbonate material, calcium carbonate. This is why ocean acidification is a problem, because calcium carbonate reacts with acid. I put sunscreen on there. I read an article just today that when you lather up with sunscreen in the tropics and you go out there swimming around the reef, the chemicals that come off in the water are actually really bad for the reef. So they don't want you to wear a lot of chemical products if you're going to go out scuba diving or swimming in the ocean. Not much lives in the open ocean. It's a harsh environment when you get way out in the middle. Mostly what we have is near the surface and what we call phytoplankton and algae, very simple organisms. Now, here's that term again, primary productivity. So phytoplankton and algae are not like a big giant tree that takes tons of carbon out of the air. They take only little bits at a time of carbon dioxide out of the air for us. So they actually, per area of the surface of the ocean, they are not very productive. They have very little primary productivity. But because the ocean is so huge, there's so much of it. It has so much surface area that if we take every little phytoplankton and algae, the open ocean is actually the most productive biome in the world. Okay, it even outdoes swamps and marshes and tropical rainforest. Only because it's gigantic. Once again, if you see the word benthic, try to remember bottom. And what these are reference points. They describe how far you are away. If you're in the middle of the ocean, how far are you away from the surface? Then we would use these terms, pelagic. So epi is right by the surface, right? Your epidermis is your skin, the outermost layer. Meso means middle. When you get to the bottom, we see this word abyss. You've probably heard of that before, into the abyss. The abyss is like no man's land, as far away as you can get. So we see abyss in both categories. If you are comparing your ecosystem interaction to the bottom of the ocean, then we use benthic.